everybody. This is Heather Kate and Inga Joseph, and we are here on the Peacock and Paisley podcast. We're going to talk about all sorts of things, wide-ranging, holistic, natural health, spiritual well-being, and probably Inga's cute little kids. Welcome, Inga. Would you like to tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, Heather. Thank you for such a beautiful introduction. I'm a naturopath and I'm an energy healer. And I combine the two together because what I found was when I started out as a naturopath, people would come to me with health conditions and the herbal medicines would heal them for a certain period of time. So I later on started combining subconscious belief work and energy healing to address the emotional cause, which is usually where the illness began, and doing trauma release and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Yeah, especially if somebody's been traumatized, it can be sort of outside their reach if they don't know about these things to do it for themselves. And even if they do know, we all need help sometimes. So that's great that you help with trauma and all of those different roots, because some people feel that they can't heal. I did a poll in one of the largest women's groups on Facebook, and asked people like what was worse, if they'd been hurt by their partner. Was the physical hurt worse or the emotional? And they all said the emotional, and that included people who had long-lasting physical permanent damage and pain every single day. And they all said that it was, they didn't recognize that it was a spiritual root, and so they couldn't pluck it out. And I was like, oh, there's such a deep need for this, such a deep need. So it's beautiful that you combine all of these things.
Yeah. And just like you said, where you said they've got permanent physical damage, that's a belief system. Nothing's permanent unless you think so, because the cells of your body are energy. They're always moving, they're always vibrating, and energy can change forms. So even what we believe to be incurable or permanent can change with the right mindset, with the right energy, with the right belief systems. And that's what I help people to do. So using that combination, I've actually seen people heal themselves from what would be considered as medically incurable and become permanently free of it. Yeah.
You want to tell us about some of those things? I was talking about missing limbs and body parts, but
that's a little bit different. But in terms of health conditions, so I've seen people, we're told autoimmune diseases, for example, are permanent. You're going to have them forever. I have seen people become completely free of MS, get rid of all their symptoms, go from not being unable to walk to running 5 kilometers a day. And it's just a matter of changing the belief systems and addressing the emotions that brought that to you in the first place. Because what happens is, usually it's driven by feelings of a lack of support, and it comes from childhood trauma or beliefs that you've inherited through your ancestry. And we often don't know what our belief systems are, what we carry, because we're born with some of them. We're born with the ones that came through our ancestry. And unless you know what they are, you can't do anything about it. And so that's what I do. I help people to understand or work out what their belief systems are and why certain things are happening, and whether it's a physical illness or just an area of their life where they're feeling stuck or they're not bringing their desires into their life. It can all change. It can all change. And that's the beauty of doing this kind of work.
It is beautiful. Yes, absolutely. Did you have, what was it that led you through your education and training process?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I guess if I start, I'll try and make it a short version of my story, but
it doesn't have to be short.
when
I wander down this lane. This is good.
So when I was a child, like really young, I was in preschool, and in the early years of my life, my earliest memories, I was able to see energy. And I know that lots of children are born that way. In fact, I'd say everyone is born with that ability. And for some people it's more intense than others, but everyone has that. Everyone can be psychic or have these intuitive abilities if they choose to. But for me, I was born into a family where it's not accepted, it's not believed, and that's that, right? So I would talk to Jesus, not in a religious way because we weren't religious. And my parents weren't actually, they didn't really like it because I would go to the shops and I'd be talking to Jesus, and then I'd have like spirits come and they would like touch me at night, and I would tell them about it and they would just tell me to stop that nonsense. But I could also, like, things would happen and I could also tell people what had happened. Like for example, my dad's car was stolen and I knew where it was. I told him the street, but I was only in preschool, so no one really believed me. So, and I could look at somebody and I knew if they were sick, so I could actually tell them that. But I learned very quickly that that's not acceptable either. You don't tell people that they're sick. So I just stopped doing that. And then
they straight up told you, who told you not to tell people that they were sick?
Well, I just learned, like, people, I would tell people, I was only young, I was like 4 or 5, and I would tell people like, oh, you've got this illness. And they like, adults don't want to know that. They just think you're mad, or they, it's not an acceptable thing to do. So I learned
mad
really
is the Australian version for crazy. This for
Yeah,
translating. Yeah, they're not.
yeah,
They weren't necessarily angry with you. They might have been angry, but she means crazy. Yes.
yeah. So I stopped doing that. I knew that wasn't acceptable, and then over the years it disappeared. So I stopped utilizing those gifts, I guess. So I always knew that they existed, and I always had this knowledge, and I wondered why I was like that, and I didn't realize there were other people like that, and probably they were, but they were like me and they didn't speak about it either, right? Because that's the world we live in. And that's what I love about LinkedIn, is that on LinkedIn you meet lots of people who are like that, right? Yeah. So that's my journey in a nutshell. So then I went down the road of doing what was accepted, and I went to uni and I studied. I became an exercise physiologist and a personal trainer and a high school teacher, and I was teaching PE, and then later on I became a special ed teacher. But all of that, so I started off doing fitness, exercise, learning about the body, and I loved it. And I still love that kind of stuff. I love knowing about the body, but I knew, like, in my heart, I'm a teacher. So in the acceptable way of doing that, I went and became a high school teacher, which I quickly learned, and I worked my way up. I was a head teacher and I was on my way to becoming a deputy. But I soon learned that it's really like going into a school system. It goes against every part of my soul. It's not like I'm a teacher at heart, but I'm not a teacher inside an institution like that. So now I'm, then after that, I decided, like, naturopathy had always been something that I was passionate about. I knew about it. I was never into medical things, although I was told or taught to believe that was the right way to be. So then when I was pregnant with my first child, I studied naturopathy. And after that, I started realizing that there's more to it. People need the emotional side, they need the energy side. So then, because I had that knowledge in me already, it sort of came out and I could see things again, but I needed to get some kind of.
Did you turn off your abilities for a while after, when you were a child?
Yeah. So they came back to me in my early 20s when I moved into I guess you'd call it a haunted house, and I had to then work out how to manage that.
Sorry, how to what?
How to manage it, how to live in that house and be able to sleep without the same things were happening to me. Like, I could see the spirits, and I could so it all just came flooding back, and I had nobody to teach me. I had to learn on my own. And I guess you move into, everything happens for a reason, so that house sort of brought it back to me.
Activate it.
Yeah. And then I needed to get certified in something energetically just to get the insurance to work here. So I studied a few modalities, and I do use them, but I also use what's my own knowledge. So yeah, So that's my
You have to
story in
be
a nutshell.
in Australia, you have to be certified to do energy work.
You don't have to be certified, but to get business insurance, you need to have some kind of certificate. You need to have you need to have something.
Oh, I would have thought. Oh, wait. Okay, sorry. So when did you become a naturopath? Is that certified
Yeah.
there?
It's not largely regulated, but you have to be part of an organization, and so you need the qualification. So yeah, I certified as a naturopath. It was about 10 years ago now. Yeah.
Okay, so did you start doing the energy work first or the naturopathy?
Naturopathy. Yeah. I was just doing
Oh,
straight naturopathy for a little while.
yeah.
I certified in the energy work a few years later and started using it immediately. And yeah, yeah, then from there, that's where things really took off.
Who was it that told you, like, how old were you and who was it that told you, or what was like the final straw where you just kind of like tamped down your spiritual gifts?
Yeah, it wasn't that anybody said don't do that, but it was just a feeling I got. My parents were sort of, letting me know that this is that they didn't believe me. So I learnt this is just not what you do. Can't really tell people about this. Yeah.
Oh, I gotcha. Your
Yeah.
self-protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, similar. I had a similar experience when I was 6. My dad told me, "Don't do it, and don't ever do it again, and don't tell anybody." So I
Yeah. Yeah.
still like sometimes I'll stutter when I'm fairly articulate normally, but I will sometimes still stutter if I'm trying to talk about what I do and how I heal people and
Yes, these are
gifts and things. But
belief systems you need to dive deep into, and probably they start in your ancestry many, many generations ago.
oh, many lifetimes, yes.
Yeah.
Many lifetimes, yeah. Yeah. And yeah, yes, that's true too.
Yeah.
I've heard 14 generations back we're encoded with
Yeah.
a lot of information.
Yeah.
That's much.
And yeah, that's what we know. But I'd say that I've worked with people, and you can, because I use a form of kinesiology to test the belief, and
Mhm.
sometimes it can go back a lot longer than that. So
Ooh,
it's individual.
cool. And who
Yeah.
would know in our modern day society, people don't know that these things are happening to them, so they can't figure it out. They can't explain it. They don't understand, and they are sure as heck not going to tell people about it,
Yeah.
unless they've been in the middle of a situation or whatever. But how do people come to you usually for your healing services? I know you're very active on LinkedIn and you have a
Yeah.
beautiful
So I
program
guess,
coming right up.
yeah, I do. It's starting next week. So
Tell us about that
I've
if
got
you want.
two types of people that come to me. The first would be people that are sick, like they've got a health condition, whether it's
Yeah.
chronic illness or something minor or gut health related. They come to seek naturopathy because they've exhausted all their medical options and they're still sick and they haven't been able to find a solution. And often I find it takes people where they've been through all the medical roads that they can, and they haven't found their solution because I'd say that doctors are not usually trained to look for the root cause. So then they come to me and they're like, "Oh, I've tried this, and this, and I'm still sick." So then what I do is I explain what I do, and I find out if they're open to it. If they're not, that's okay. We can use herbs only. That's fine. That's not a problem. And I explain to them, but you'll get some benefits, you'll get some improvements, but
But
until
I'll
we
see
address
you in
the
3 weeks.
emotion, yeah, it's usually a few months, but like until we address the emotions, the beliefs, that's where the real healing occurs. And it's just nudging them to slowly open up their mind to the world of that every possibility exists for them. So that's the first type of client. They come to me when they've exhausted all their medical options. The second kind is people who are already open to energies and they know that they need that, and they're on a spiritual journey and they're looking for support. So then I do just the energy work with them. And they're at different levels of their healing journeys. Some of them have just begun. Some of them have businesses and they're already working in the industry. But like you said earlier, everybody needs support. And we often can't, we often find it hard to navigate our own healing journey, especially at those higher levels, because I find that the higher you go, the further you go into your healing journey, you'll hit some blocks. And because you've done heaps and heaps of healing in the past and you've worked through all these issues, then when you hit a block, it's like, yeah, now I'm truly stuck. I don't know where to go from here. So those are the second type of people that I work with, where they've done a lot of work, they're ready, and they've just hit a block, and whether it's in their business, whether it's in their relationships, in their personal life, whether it's in their finances, I help them move through those blocks. Because for a while I was training people to become energy healers, and so I was an instructor in one of the modalities, and through that I learned a lot about what the highest level of blocks are, and where most people are stuck. But I can also see it through their ancestry. And so I teach them a process where they're able to then go and take that information and use it forever. They can use it for the rest of their lives whenever they hit a block. And that's basically what my upcoming program is about. It's about really moving through those higher level blocks and bringing all of your desires into your life, because we know that we can have everything we want. It's just a matter of uncovering what's in the way, what's blocking us energetically. Yeah.
Is this a particular type of healing system, or is this something that you created? I mean, I guess it's particular, but did you create this?
A mixture. I created the program, but the process is a mixture of all the things that I have learnt through courses, but also learnt on my own. It's my personal experience and my knowledge. And so I guess it's my own process in a way. But yeah, it's a combination of all the things. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And I just love helping people to uncover the areas where they've been working through for a while. And people can get caught up in cycles of healing where they've been working through the same issue for months or years or weeks, whatever it is. And then they think that they're done with that, and it resurfaces. And that's what this is about. It's about ensuring that if something resurfaces, people know how to move through that and how to get to the bottom of it without getting stuck on that loop of I need to heal, because it's dynamic. Like, we know that healing's a journey, but there's also that fine line between, like, do we really want to be doing the same thing over and over and over again? What's the belief behind that? Why is that coming back up? Yeah.
Very interesting. How long is your program? And it starts next week?
Yeah, so it starts next week. Thursday is the official start date, but I'm doing a pre-call on Tuesday, and it goes for 8 weeks. In 8 weeks, it's a very intensive program. There's a lot of work to be done. So it's for people who are really at those levels of, like, I'm stuck and I can't work out why. And they're just seeking support. So that's what it's about. Yeah. People who are ready to do the work.
Yep, because you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah, that's right.
You have that saying in Australia?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. How do people usually end up finding you outside of that program? But when
that's a good question. So in my local area, because I have a clinic room that I see people face to face, it's usually word of mouth, or they've come across an Instagram post that someone's liked, that one of their friends have liked or shared. That's usually, and that's word of mouth as well. If someone locally is sharing my post, that's how people find me in the clinic room. But online, I'd say LinkedIn has been the biggest source of people finding me. LinkedIn has been an incredible way of really getting a larger reach, so I can help more people, basically.
Yeah, I love technology in many, many ways. And this is one of those things that it's kind of approximating psychic connections
Yeah.
in a way through technology. So we're really blessed with that. And I think it's great that you're helping so many people to heal themselves, and not just, temporarily, but to have the skills and the abilities and know how to handle the next thing that comes up. And, astrologically, we're always going through a spiral of healing things. So it's probably going to come back to some degree at
Yeah.
some point in time, so
Yeah.
at a different way, different flavor, different angle. So it's great I think it's really important for people to have skills and not just to be like dependent on a guru or um a drug. So I really love what you're doing. It's great.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us more about the ghost in the house.
Yeah. So I moved into this house. It was in Sydney, which is an hour and a half from where I live. And I had moved up
Are you
there
just
just
south of
because,
Sydney?
yeah,
Yes.
yep. So I can drive to Sydney easily. A lot of people where I live, they work in Sydney and they go up there every day. Um, So yeah, I had moved to Sydney because I was working up there at a school, and I had moved up there just because it saved me the commute. And I thought, why not? Let's experience the city life. So I moved into this house, and I remember walking in. I went to check out the room, and I thought, oh, this is got an interesting feel here. So just strange things would happen in that house. Like you'd put your clothes down on the bed, and you'd go and have a shower, and you'd come back in the room and something would be missing or the clothes would be moved. It was just quite
Oh
bizarre,
my.
strange. And I'd be going, I couldn't sleep. Like I had insomnia during those periods of time. There was something about it where I couldn't switch off. I could sense that there was something watching me or
Yeah.
something there. And I could feel like, that from time to time. It just, yeah, it was different. And so all of those memories from my childhood came flooding back. And because it used to happen to me when I was a child that I'd be laying in bed and I could feel something touching me, but I didn't know what to do about it back then. And I thought and then I was reflecting, I was like, well, I switched it off back then. How do I do that now? But it
How do
wasn't
I
like,
reverse that?
as an adult, it was no longer about just switching it off and ignoring it. It was about learning how to manage that and how to live in that house and to protect my own energies. So that's when I started looking into healing modalities and what can I do about this. And I found theta healing, and I booked into a course and I went, and part of that modality is learning how to send energies away, sending them
Oh,
to,
really?
yeah, and protecting yourself and grounding and learning how to coexist. And so that's where like a huge amount of my learning came from. So I was able to learn how to do that and manage it. And then I was able to go to sleep. I was able to change the energies and the belief systems. And so that's where that came from. And I guess that experience living in that house triggered me into finding the support that I needed and learning and finding the process and working out how to do it all. And yeah, without just knowing it's there and being able to sense it and feel it, but actually diving into, well, what can I do about this? How
So
do I do this?
what did you do about it?
So I went to that course, and like day 3 of the course, it was a 3-day course. You learn how to protect yourself from other energies, whether it be thought forms, spirits, which they call entities, and learning how to send them away. So you learn all of those processes, and I started practicing them immediately. And then I found, I can sleep now. This is fine. All of this is good. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, sleep's kind of important.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow.
it was actually a blessing because it led me into finding the support I needed at the time and learning.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. So did the ghost have an agenda? And who was it? And how did you send it away?
Well, I sent it away. The process that I used is like you close your eyes, you ground yourself, you draw the energy into your body from the higher realms, and then you just ask, you command it to go away and by its name. And whether you know its name or not is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You can just say by its name. and then it goes. Did it have an agenda? I'm not sure, but what I have come to know is that most spirits that are just wandering around are lost. Like they're here because they have, missed their window to the light because of huge trauma in their life when they were alive. And what I've come to learn as well is that whether they are here for a negative reason or not, they're just an energy. And if they had a human body and we could see them, we like with our physical eyes, we would not be scared of them. But we tend to be scared of an energy that doesn't have biology anymore, which is, when you think of it that way, it seems insane. It's like, wow, it's just an energy. It's the essence of someone who once had biology, once had a body. So yeah, and then later on in my own house, my little girls, I've got 2 little girls, they had a visitor. They had a visitor and her name was Matilda. And I could hear Matilda, but I couldn't see her, but they could see her. And it didn't worry me.
You could hear Matilda?
Yeah, I heard her crying one morning. I heard mommy, and I went to check on my girls and they're asleep. Then I went to bed. I'm like, oh, well, maybe they were just having a bad dream. It wasn't actually them, because sometime later, one of my girls came in and she said, oh, mummy, this is Matilda. She's lost her mummy. Can she stay with us? So what I did, I used that process. I sent her away to the light. And then she came back and she was in our house for a few days. And then she left. And there was there was nothing else to it. So yeah, I don't know all the ins and outs of it.
Did she say why she came back?
No, but I feel like she was just, I'd sent her away and she was only with us for a couple of days. So it could have just been a transition process. Not exactly sure. Maybe she just wanted to hang out with my little girls. I don't know. But they weren't scared of her. Like the biggest thing that took away from it was they could see her and they quite liked it. They weren't worried.
Because she was a good girl. That's really neat. Do they still remember your daughters? Do they remember what happened?
Turning 8, and she doesn't, if I ask her, she's got a vague memory of it. But my 6-year-old's like, yeah, I remember.
That's cool. Does Matilda ever show up to them in their dreams?
No, they haven't mentioned it. I'm not sure, but they haven't mentioned it.
Yeah, no. I bet they would tell you.
Yeah.
That's really cool because a lot of people don't know that this is an option. And if they have an experience that's remotely like that, they just don't know that there are ways to handle it. And so I think it's great that.
Yeah.
What's that?
The fear comes in if they do have experiences like that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they're not always nice. So
there's
that aspect.
Yeah.
But our culture, I don't know if it's different in Australia, but in the United States, it's not acceptable or hadn't been acceptable. Like when I was growing up, you didn't have ghosts, you didn't talk, that doesn't happen, it's not real, blah blah blah. And so it disempowers people, and they don't know that they can interact, they don't know that they can protect themselves. They do have these experiences, but there's no place for it to talk about it. There's no place to get help. There's no, and you're considered like a kook or crazy or something if, you even do bring it up. So I think people repress it a lot. And so things don't get handled in a healthy way. So I think it's wonderful that, you do that that how to do this, that there's a system for it. Some of us wandered into these things from a multitude of different directions, but it sounds like I did. It sounds like theta is very helpful.
Yeah. Like you said, it's very much the same here, where people can have these experiences, but you don't really go to the coffee shop with your friends and talk about it. It's not. We don't do that.
Yeah. Do you remember any of your past lives?
Yes, so I've done a lot of past life healing, and I've seen quite a few of them, and I've worked through quite a few of them. And one of them comes up quite often. So there was one, I was in Egypt and I was outcasted into the desert. And that's been a big source of healing for me. But I do know that I've lived in Israel in the past as well, many lifetimes. I've always been drawn to there. I took my husband there. We went there on our honeymoon, and it was incredible, just the energy of that land.
Oh, really?
Yes, quite a few, but those are the main ones that come up for me in healings, and those are the visions that I get. Yeah. How about you? Have you taken a deep dive into your past lives?
Yes, but let's go back to visions for 2 seconds. Tell me about
Yeah.
visions. You get visions?
Yeah, yeah, especially in my dreams, like when I'm asleep, they'll come up, and I've got a journal next to my bed. So if things come up in my sleep, I just write it down straight away. Yeah.
See, I think of dreams and visions as being separate things, but
Mm.
um,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because visions are when you're awake. Yeah, that makes sense.
do you see things when you're awake? Do you get visions? Do you get impressions, knowings?
Yes, I do now. I didn't always, but what happens now is if something's ready to come up, if something keeps happening and it's ready to be healed, I'll be shown the lifetime where that belief was taken on or created. And that's where it's healed from the source. So you heal it from the first time, which is often not in this lifetime.
Yes, I think a lot of people are healing. I think a lot of people are trying to wrap up
Mm.
uh things, karma, not just karma, but like, relationships. It's kind of like the one last my impression is that it's like a one last time through, not
Yeah,
necessarily last lifetime, but like if you have shit you're trying to wrap up with other people, it's now, it's the time, it's pretty much we're
yeah,
done. It's,
yeah,
I advise my clients that like we're done with that time. This was kind of like the last time frame to do that, and we're going different directions. So
yeah,
you don't want to you don't want to get stuck in a place or a direction that is not meant for you, or a path that you shouldn't be on. Um, and the way I used to see it, yeah, about 10 years ago, I had an impression of like two trains in a station going sort of the same direction, but they're veering off. And like one's, team good, one's team bad. And, for a long time, people had baggage on both and foot on both. And, but there's coming to a point, and we've gone past it now, where you have to pick. And so
yeah.
that was like a decade ago. And now, I think a lot of the people that I work with are empaths. And so they have often been in relationships with people who really like, needed their help, but
Mm.
were energy vampires, were narcissists. So, and through many lifetimes. Um,
Yeah.
and for a lot of us, myself included, this has been a wrap up loop. Like it's done now. It's
Yeah.
like old connections across many lifetimes, and being like, okay, one last try, please get it right, because I can't stay, like get it. And not
Yeah.
everybody does, but some people do, some beings do. And I've had some, I've discovered some really interesting healing through from that has happened in relationships with people who've already crossed over, but like in our lifetime together, they did a whole bunch of things to heal things from many lifetimes ago. And
Yeah.
I know some people feel that all lifetimes are concurrent, and I'm still sort of learning some of that, but like in terms of what we consider to be time, linear time, it was a
Yeah.
while ago. And things that they had done and that really harmed me, and killed me.
Mm.
So in this lifetime, some people have not stepped up, and then but in this lifetime some people have, and it's really interesting to see how that is. And I love that you do past life healing with your clients. I think it's really important, and that's been a huge factor for my clients. Not all of them are like ready or able or willing to go there, but the ones that have a stuck block and they can't figure it out, and they specifically come because they're like, can we do a reading, or can we do, I have this issue and I don't know what to do. But like the type of healing that's spiritual is amazing. Like one of my clients had been in, like, I didn't know her before she came. It was like a cold situation. She just came in. We started doing our thing. I was doing a reading. And then I said, oh, and we went through all these horrible details about what had happened to her, including like, I said, your ex-husband has some of your teeth, and would you like them back? And she was like, there wasn't any visible, but in real life, like he really and truly had knocked out her teeth. And part of her healing, she needed her parts back. And in this case, it was physical and literal, but it was also spiritual. So even though she had lost in the physical, she had lost those teeth, she needed them back spiritually. He had held them as a way of holding on to her and continuing to try to control her. So it's like, all this stuff is so interesting, so many layers. It's so beautifully blended together.
Yeah.
It's like fruit salad.
Yeah. And it often is that way. And we keep repeating the same patterns until we learn the lesson, until we have learnt why it's coming up. And that's how people get stuck in cycles of abuse, because they can leave, consciously. They know that they don't want to be in that situation, and they know it's not a good thing, and then they leave, but then they just attract a new partner on the same level of vibration, because they haven't healed those deep beliefs that they don't know exist. So they bring in another narcissist, and that's how people get trapped in those cycles of bad relationships, I guess we'd call it, because consciously we know it's not good. Subconsciously, we don't know what belief systems are running our life. And unless we really look into that, that's where we can change the cycles and the patterns of that.
I also like to look at implants, or spiritual implants, or some people might sort of call it possession. I don't want to freak anybody out, but there's like these spiritually, like if you have a gaping hole, like a spiritual wound, and something goes in, you've got to get rid of that. You could get rid of the person, but until you get rid of all of these extraneous things and heal up, then yes, you are more attractive to a blood-sucking narcissist.
Right.
They love you. They're like, yay, easy prey. But yeah, you're right. After you heal some of those things, it's pretty amazing how you can actually get well and be happy and recover. And that goes back to all of those. Like, I asked a group full of hundreds of thousands of women, and like 8,000 people responded, and most of them said they would prefer to have a lasting physical impairment than to have gone through the emotional abuse. And then I asked about spiritual, because they can't seem to recover from it. And I was like, it's because it's a spiritual underneath that. The wounding is spiritual. And once you heal that part, then all these other things can blossom out, including the physical. So I think it's amazing and wonderful that you combine all of these things together.
Yeah. I love doing that. And like I said, if people aren't open to it, they get some herbal medicines, and yes, it will help, because we know that they can work. And because they carry an energy too, because everything is energy at work. And eventually they will encourage people to open their mind to the larger possibilities.
Yes. Yep. I think, people need time, especially if most people in our culture have been taught to never, ever, ever consider the spiritual side. then, they can't go there right away. They need to know that they're safe with you before trying some of these other things.
Yeah, we've got to meet people where they're at, honor where they're at in that
Yes.
moment. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I ask you one question about when you did your naturopath training? How did you like it? What was it like? Where did you study, or what was your
Yeah, so I studied at a
education like?
school in Australia called the Australian Institute of Applied Sciences. And yeah, I loved it. I loved learning about all the plants, all the minerals, and how important they are for our body. They also carry their own energy. I learned how to make medicines. So I
Oh,
can
that's
make them.
cool.
I generally don't, because they take about 6 to 8 weeks to make, and you never know what someone's going to need. So then a lot of them, originally at the start, I was making a lot of stuff, but when someone comes to you, they need it already ready, or they're not going to take it. And you can never
Yeah, you
predict what
can't wait.
somebody is going to come in. So I was making a whole heap of stuff for a whole different, like, common ailments, and then I thought, you know what, I'll just use a company where they can just order it and they can get exactly what they need next day delivery. But yeah, I learned all that. I loved it. I loved it. And I do still do that for my own kids. So I made them
Oh, do you
recently.
really?
Yeah, I put them
Of
on a
course, but
parasite
that's
cleanse
cool.
every year. So they just did their parasite cleanse, where I make up a herbal concoction for them, and they take it for 3 weeks. Yeah, so I do things like that for them every year. And so, yeah, I love having the knowledge that I can make the medicines if I need to, but it's not always the most practical thing to do.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It does take a
Yeah.
lot of work and a lot of time.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Um, well, thank you. Is there anything else like you want to share with us, or?
Not that I can think of. I'd just like to say thank you so much for having me today. It's been a
You're
pleasure
most
talking
welcome.
to you. And yeah,
Likewise.
thank you.
So your program is starting, and by the time people hear this, there may be people hearing it after.
Mm.
I don't know if you have any openings or not, but what's the best way for people to get in touch with you down now and down the road?
They can look at my website. It's www.paradiseholistichealth.com.au. There's a book a call button, so I'm happy for people to book a call or fill out the contact form. Calls aren't for everybody. Or via LinkedIn, they can send me a message, and if they want more information on the program, I can send them a link. Yeah, so there's a few ways people can get in touch, and any of those
Great.
ways is perfect. Yeah.
Wonderful. Great. If there is ever any time when you would like to let people know about more information that you want to share, I'm happy to do that for you with you. And I look forward to talking with you again. Thank you for the beautiful work that you're doing in the world.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Take care.